they have so much turnover that we can't really get to know who these people are, and they know who we are. So we have to figure out a way to do that, and so that they don't just go, "Hey, we're IT." Okay.
You're gonna have to get them badges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think we might just do tattoos
on the foreheads.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Dunlap from Perkins County Health Services in Grant, Nebraska, and you're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin.
Go!
Yeah, I watched the UFC pay-per-view last night, so
Okay.
I had to get all that out. And in this corner, Donna Grindle with the red gloves. Yeah. So anyway, we're busting wide open into 2019, and so today we're going to do our typical. Donna likes to call it a watch list. I like to call it predictions.
We can call it predictions. Things that we think might happen.
Yeah. The funny part is how we come about the list. Because Donna is much more, she's like looking at the trends and looking at, what's out there and what's coming and all that. And I'm more like, stick your finger up in the air and go, yep, I think that's going to happen.
Pretty much.
And somehow we still end up landing on a pretty daggum accurate list. Even though we have two very different ways we come about it.
Yeah, we have pretty much the same information, just two different ways.
Yeah. But before we get into that, tell everybody where you're going to be.
Well, Middle Georgia, MGMA, January 23rd, Macon, Georgia. That is my targeted date. I'm looking forward to being down there. And in the putting together a special workshop for the Society of OMS Administrators National Conference in Savannah, April 7th through the 10th, which we're doing a really cool thing there. And still trying to figure out where we're going between those two. There's a lot going on. So there you go.
Cool. And then in March 20, 21, 22 will be the next HIPAA boot camp, the first one of 2019.
That's right. So now we've gotten through the holidays and we gave everybody extra time so they could start planning for it.
Mm-hmm.
Information's out there. So the early bird pricing ends February 20th for the March dates, and it ends April 15th for the May dates. So get your deals in there. There's a few different ways you can save. So that you can come join us for the big 3-day session. Hopefully, we will live through it.
Ooh. Yeah, that's gonna be fun in and of itself.
Yep, I concur.
So, if you want more information on that, then you need to go to thehipaabootcamp.com, or you can go to helpmewithhipaa.com/bootcamp and get all the information there. And Don and I even put some audio files there that goes into a deeper dive into what boot camp's all about, as well as the new 3-day session, what that's all about. But super valuable. Everybody that comes absolutely loves it. And we love them coming.
Yes, we do. And if you're an alumni, let us know. We have special deals for you too. So if you want to come back and join us, we get excited seeing our friends again.
I know.
Alrighty then. What are we going to predict or watch for in 2019, David, since you figured these out so scientifically?
I know. I do the swag method. Look it up.
Hey, it worked. We're very confident after our success for our 2018 and what we thought, and we reviewed where we were with those. So let's see if we can do as well with our educated guesses, is what I called them.
Mm-hmm.
Or as David does them, they are swags.
Yep, they are swags. I learned that technique way back in high school.
That's right. All right, let's hit it then, brother.
All right.
We have seven things to watch.
So our 7 predictions of 2019 start out with we're going to see some federal data privacy and security legislation. And this is something that kind of spilled over from 2018, but I think it's going to be more pronounced in 2019. We're actually going to see some sizable movement there.
Well, there was so much activity with the state laws in 2018, and there was, madness in trying to get anything done at the federal level. But this is one of those areas we mentioned before that is quite bipartisan. Mm-hmm. And, those are rare in today's world, but we're going to see something. And, these data breaches that we keep seeing announced, when the Marriott one came out, it was, they came out and said, how was it that one of them put that they suggested that our data breach law included jail time if the CEO and CFO and all of those C-suite folks couldn't show that they were actually paying attention to cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. And that's where the problem lies, and that's what we always talk about. But I don't think they'll be able to send anybody to jail. Maybe. Mm-hmm. It might get, that's probably what it would take to get their attention, though, because you have to take a boatload of money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've already seen some movement on this with a lot of movement on the state side. Federally, there are some things that are brewing, and I'm looking for them to actually become legislation in 2019. Whereas right now they're just throwing ideas around.
Yeah, they've got a couple of proposed bills out there that are getting some traction and getting enough sponsors and enough meat in them.
Yeah, well,
so we're definitely going to see something.
Yeah,
it's just what
exactly, because they're looking at the GDPR overseas and they're trying to figure out how that's working out, and that's another whole side of things that's going to be changing, I think, too. But for us, depending on how you do business, it may or may not affect you. But it is a ripple effect when you have corporations or companies over here that have to deal with GDPR, and then that, like I said, that kind of ripples through our own economy and businesses as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there will be less yelling the more it's like GDPR.
Mm-hmm. It'd be more weeping and gnashing of teeth. But, it's unfortunate that it comes to that it has to be legislation. But at the same time, people still don't understand the power of the technology they walk around with.
No, and I mean, that's the bottom line is you don't want the regulations, but you also don't want to do the right thing or take the time to understand what that is. You can't have it both ways. And that's what, we've talked about it over and over. And, our last episode talked about the HIPAA rules. They're not going to loosen security requirements. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, they're going to make it easier to share information when it should be shared. That's what we're talking about doing and getting rid of just paperwork stuff. But the security program is no different than any other security program that's out there. So I'm just saying.
All right.
So that's number one. What's number two, David?
Numero two. Like how I can speak multiple languages. So number two would be that we'll start seeing more civil suits from patients and the public.
Yeah. It has to be a little scary for some of these folks. The attorneys are, having a heyday out there right now trying to figure out how they can go about it. But as far as healthcare is concerned, there was a huge award. It's a major award. Look, it's fragile. But yet I digress. The jury in Connecticut awarded a woman $853,000. Now, this is a case that I've been following since, I don't know, it goes way back. And I've been following this case for a very, very long time as it went up to the Supreme Court and back down to the courts and back up. But in that case, it's essentially HIPAA was used as a standard of care. And not as, I'm not suing you under HIPAA, but I'm saying you should have followed HIPAA and you weren't. Mm-hmm. And we can prove that you weren't. And that's the infamous case where the doctor's office responded to a subpoena for the medical records without letting the patient know in advance and giving the patient any opportunity to do anything about it, even though her records explicitly stated, do not release the records to this person, and that person subpoenaed the records. So it didn't go well, clearly, but, and in the end, she's not making a ton of money, but she dug in her heels to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell by how long she stuck with it and all she went through for it. But that's not the only one, and there are plenty of them out there. They are small ones, there are big ones, but most of them are these cases like this where it's a one-off situation. It's not the huge data breaches.
Right.
But the huge data breaches are now starting to gain some traction where they're able to form a class and do the class action lawsuits.
Mm-hmm. Well, one misconception, not necessarily misconception, but some people say, well, you can't sue somebody for a HIPAA violation. And although that is true, where they're getting around that is that states allow for lawsuits when there has been a data breach and your PII, not PHI, PII is breached. So the states allow for that to happen. So even though HIPAA doesn't allow it, it can still be done. So it's kind of a technicality.
Yeah, these are not federal lawsuits. These are state lawsuits.
Right.
And all of these changes that we talk about in the state laws are opening up floodgates that people aren't aware of until they get hit with one of these. And the bottom line is, can you show you were doing what you were supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that's where those land. If you show you did everything you were supposed to do, they're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation with an insurance agent last week about cybersecurity insurance. And my question to him was, what does my client have to be able to prove so that the cybersecurity insurance would make sure it kicks in? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I've never had anybody ask that question. And I was kind of floored. I was like, you're selling the insurance. How do I make sure the insurance is going to activate? Or are you going to say the client wasn't doing A, B, C, and X, Y, Z, so we're not covering it? And he's like, I don't know. I just don't know.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
See?
But I think what's happening is there's not enough happening in the insurance industry where people are using these policies yet, so they don't really know what they're paying and not paying.
Yeah, and that they are paying things that they don't like paying, and that means they're changing the policies shortly thereafter. So you gotta really study it and ask the questions and know they don't know, but keep asking.
Right. So
you're sticking with that question, aren't you, David?
Yeah, absolutely. Told him I said I want to answer. So he said he would investigate and get back with me after the holidays.
Yeah. And in June you might still be.
Maybe. Yeah.
All right. So
that was number 2.
Number 3.
States are becoming very active in prosecuting and adding new laws.
Yeah, for these breaches, it's getting tough out there at the state level because the states, hey, they'll take your money. They don't care. And South Carolina has a new breach notice requirement just for insurance companies.
Oh, yeah.
And that came out of the National Association of Insurance Companies, I think, NAIC.
Yep.
Developed an insurance data security model law. People, pay attention. This was a great idea. They knew it was coming, so they wanted to define what their law said. And they said, here, all you legislators, here is a model you can use. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand half of it anyway, so they're like, awesome. So tell us about this South Carolina law.
Well, the South Carolina law only deals with insurance companies or agents or anybody doing business in South Carolina, selling insurance. And basically, it's very, very much HIPAA-like. Yeah, I think everything that's going to come after HIPAA is going to be HIPAA-like.
Yeah.
But it's talking to insurance agents about having, data privacy and protection mechanisms in place. It's talking about policies and procedures. It's talking about risk analysis and risk management plans and all these other. I mean, it's almost down the line. It's the same things we're hearing and seeing from HIPAA. Same thing with PCI. All of these regulations and standards and stuff they're all very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the caveat to that is don't think because you're PCI compliant that you're HIPAA compliant. You don't think that if you're HIPAA compliant that you're, insurance compliant. I mean, they all have nuances. So you can't have one and think you've got them all covered.
Yeah, not just, you can't assume.
Mm-hmm.
You know about assume.
What is that?
Well, if you don't know about assume, I'm not going to be able to help you with that, now am I? But the other thing at the state level are the state attorney generals.
Mm-hmm.
And there, a lot of people don't realize that under high tech, the state attorney generals gain the power to add HIPAA enforcement at the state level. And they're starting to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just, like an example, one of the recent ones that came out, I think this is Massachusetts State Attorney General, a hospital they lost an unencrypted device. And, we keep saying, why is this?
That never happens.
But, they fined them $75,000. And that's separate from any other things that are going to happen.
Mm.
We learned that with Anthem, where they settled with the states and then they had to turn around and deal with OCR.
Yeah.
So we're seeing those penalties coming out and more of them. And then this case, and we may do a whole episode on this particular case, is the first really big case that we've seen. It was a vendor who had a data breach, and it was between May 7th, 2015 and May 26th, 2015. So 20 days roughly. Hackers infiltrated their web application run by Medical Informatics Engineering and stole the PHI of more than 3.9 million people.
Ouch.
Yes. So, and I remember, this happening and going, what? I mean, it was like a huge vendor hack. It's probably one of the biggest the vendor was hacked. And Beth Crudup, and I'm gonna hope that I pronounce the name, but she's up there in Indiana where Medical Informatics Engineering is, and so she saw this article first and shot it off to me. HBC alumni, what?
Yep.
And thanks for that, Beth, because she gave me the laws and not just articles where I had to go find the laws, or the court filings rather, not the laws, but the court filings. And so this case is huge. 12 different states
Wow.
are filing a suit against Medical Informatics Engineering and No More Clipboard LLC. So here's the thing is we've got a vendor, Medical Informatics Engineering, hosted WebChart, an EHR, we assume, with that name. And No More Clipboard LLC had to have been a vendor they used, right?
Right.
So there's two vendors involved in a major data breach. We got 12 states that have shown that they have standing to sue these people. I just wonder how that's going to work out. It's not going to be they win $12. And as bad as this breach was, I don't know how they'll be able to say they don't need to pay anything. So it's going to be very interesting how this one works out. And like I said, we may do a deeper dive on this one at some point. But because here again, 12 different states banding together. I don't remember, was it 9 states that did that with Anthem?
Yeah.
I want to say. And so
so
the state's attorney general's offices are banding together so they can get more without spending as many resources because everybody's sharing. So I think it's really going to be huge what the states start doing as these new laws get implemented and how do they enforce them. And then you look at things like this, it's going to be really telling what happens with this case. And of course, it's going to take You know, here we are. They just filed it in 2018, so over 3 years later, they're filing it. And who knows? Maybe by 2025, it'll be resolved.
Maybe so.
But that is, though, the vendor thing is a perfect segue to number 4.
Yeah. So number 4 is one that you are holding tight to, which is that supply chain will become a priority.
Yes, it is absolutely. If you don't make it a priority, you will regret it.
Mhm.
Let's just say that.
So do we need to describe what supply chain is at all?
Yeah, probably, because, that's the word that, the technical people do it, but it's the concept. And by the way, the NIST cybersecurity framework, that was the major change that they added when they updated it in 2018, was to add managing the supply chain. And the supply chain is, a lot of people think of, well, that means where I get products from. Well, it's not just that. It's where you get everything from that you need to run your business. So your software company is part of your supply chain. But the supply chain doesn't just end there. It keeps going by who all of their vendors are as part of your supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember a few years ago, a hurricane hit Taiwan, I want to say, and flooded this whole area. And it just so happened it was like one of those areas where tons of hard drives were made. And it messed up, and everybody used different companies, but all the companies were in this one area that was completely flooded. So they were telling everybody, get the hard drives you need right now, because we're going to have a delay coming, because they're not going to be able to clean that up for a couple months.
Yeah.
So that one thing happening in Taiwan impacted anybody wanting a hard drive potentially over in the United States or anywhere in the world, really. And that's the supply chain we're talking about. But we're also talking about the power company. We're talking about, what was it I read that was like a certain type of gloves or something like that they use in hospitals a lot, are actually manufactured in Puerto Rico. And it was like all the ones in the U.S., it was the number one manufacturer of this thing. It was just a regular supply thing. It was like gloves or syringes or something like that, that
Right.
you don't really think about. But there's shortages of them because of Hurricane Maria really just beat the crap out of Puerto Rico, and they're having a hard time recovering.
Mm-hmm.
So that can impact your ability to care for patients.
Yeah.
Yes. So not just the technical stuff, not just the stuff that we talk about with PHI, but the bigger picture of, if I lose power for 5 days, how am I going to work?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people, their contingency plan is, oh, well, we're going to do, we'll work from home. Well, how long are you going to be able to do that? Everybody thinks like it's a day or two.
Right.
And it's not. And a few of the things that make it clear how you have to worry about these vendors is there's a data dispute going on between a dentist and an EHR platform over giving them their data and giving them access to their data when they want to leave the platform, but they still want access to the data. And there's a huge fight going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be interesting to watch. And then, of course, this one is like, how we just had that settlement. Who was it that had, Sam T. Scammer?
Yeah.
They just had the settlement where they thought they were contracting with somebody to do billing, and it turns out that wasn't who they were contracting with. They were contracting with
that
this
was crazy.
random dude. Yeah. So it's a false contractor, right?
Mhm.
And Contra Costa Health Plan has now said that they notified everybody recently that they had a contractor using a false identity.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they hired them to do chart utilization management, where they're reviewing all of these different charts at the health plan, and turns out it wasn't really who they said they were. Good golly, Miss Molly. So vetting the vendors, paying attention to all of your vendors and how they could impact your business, and being aware of that and having a plan for dealing with it, every business needs to do it, but healthcare has to do it more than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you talk about supply chain, I mean, most people, they have a just-in-time inventory system.
Yep.
And so I do. I mean, in my business, I'm not carrying $10,000 worth of product, in hopes that it'll sell. I'm just going to, I can typically get anything within 2 days. So why would I want to carry it? But what happens is when the storms out west and FedEx and UPS can't run, and now my 2-day turnaround for supply chain is now a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But, and I'm not doing anything that is medical related. So I can imagine if you can't get gloves into your hospital and you run out and you have no gloves for 2 weeks, that's a major issue.
Well, and what about your clients who are counting on you? They say, well, the number of times that we'll see in an initial assessment that somebody says, well, if we have a disaster, our IT company will replace all our computers.
Oh yeah. That'll happen, but not the way you think it will.
Exactly.
And that's the way.
And have you asked them about it? Have you really talked about what that means?
Yeah, we have. It's funny because we deal with this conversation typically when we start talking about backup and disaster recovery, where they'll say, well, if my server goes down, you can have me a server in here in how many hours? And I laugh. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You can't go to the store and buy a server. And even if you order a server, a lot of times the companies don't even have those pre-built, depending on what you want. You're looking at, possibly a 2-week turnaround. And we're certainly.
And if your server's older, then some of that stuff's going to be different, and you're going to have to deal with some configuration differences.
Oh yeah, it can be a mess. Just replacing a server alone with no other things happening that's pushing you is a big task. But I tell clients all the time, I don't know of many IT companies that have a $5,000 to $10,000 server sitting there waiting on somebody to need it.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't do it.
I'm not going to do it, and that's why we have to.
But I mean, you look at a doctor's office; they don't get a $10,000 piece of equipment because they might use it every other year.
Right. And we have conversations all the time with clients about, look, if certain things in your business are that critical, then you need to have a backup system or some type of redundancy in place. And they have the same argument we have, which is, I don't want to buy something that I may not need. But
hello.
And I'm
they want to outsource.
Right.
That.
And I'm like, I get it. You don't want to buy it, but you're not going to find somebody else that's going to buy it and have it just sitting there for you either, unless they're charging you for something you're not using. So either way, you're paying for it.
Well, and that's the thing about having this where you could switch over to the cloud and spin one up in the cloud. Those are great solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you still have to, you want those people, it's like IT support people. I only want to pay you when I need you. Well, how are you going to make sure I'm actually here when you need me?
Right. Well, I can tell you during a disaster, you can forget it. Because
I know, right?
My focus is going to be on those clients that are, they're dealing with us month in and month out. And, just like you brought up, if you have a regional disaster or even a disaster, within a 30-mile radius of most IT companies, they may have 10, 15, 20 computers that they can loan out. But if you've got 100 clients and they have all got 15, 20 computers, guess what?
Hello.
What are you going to do?
Where are you going to land in that pecking order?
Right. It's like, no, you just can't. You can't have enough to deal with that type of disaster. It's a mess. And that's
what people don't get. They just think they're going to be the only ones, and they look at it in a tunnel vision. Yeah.
Funnel vision. I've had that before.
But this is one of the reasons that we added the workshop to the boot camp, is to spend some time talking about your incident response, disaster recovery, contingency planning, because it goes so much deeper than most people spend the time doing. And that's one of the things we really want to get into in the workshop.
Right. And the biggest part of that, like you brought out, was that you can't assume that vendors are going to be there for you. And you don't know to what extent they're going to be there for you.
And you can't assume they're not going to be the problem.
And we've seen that. Wow.
So yes, that's my big one. That is my number one thing that if we don't start making that a bigger priority in managing them, and by the way, vendors, stop pushing back because I'm asking you those questions. Clearly, I need to.
Yeah.
So
So maybe you need to put on your assessment, the next question you need to put is you real? So many fake vendors out there. I don't know where they find these people. I guess it's
I know.
Online employment agencies. I don't know.
You do any of the vetting. Most people are prepared for your basic couple of questions, sign some stuff, you're done. But if you do the vetting that we recommend you do, that'll come out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, that's number 4. We got 3 more. Let's get them done.
All right. Number 5, crypto mining will become a bigger threat than ransomware.
Well, this is your big one.
Yeah, this is, it's funny because
felt in the wind.
I know. It's funny because I'm like, I kind of make this comment, and then Donna comes back with 2 articles that practically say the exact same thing I said. And I'm like, wait a minute.
I have to prove your point.
I know you did prove my point, but I thought I was ahead of the curve, but apparently I'm not. So anyway, there's an article put out, I think it was by Forbes, that says that crypto mining malware has grown 4,000% in 2018. That's better.
4,000%.
I wish my portfolio would grow that large. But yeah. So the thing about crypto mining that people don't understand a lot of times is that what's happening is somebody is using your computer or your resources or your internet, whatever, to create Bitcoins or cryptocurrency so that they can then turn that into, other monetary things, because the mining for the cryptocurrency has to happen using resources. So a computer chip or a graphics chip or whatever, it takes computer power and processing to do that. And so what people have started to do is, instead of putting all these computers in their own home or their own garage, they're like, hey, we can just use other people's.
There you go.
And
you're not using it.
Right. And so they're quote unquote hacking into, business. The business might have 30, 40 computers. Well, that's 30 or 40 computers they don't have to have, and they don't have to pay the power on and all that. And they just use those computers to start mining the cryptocurrency, and then they get all the benefit out of it. The downside is that although they may not be accessing your data, what they are doing is they are stealing your resources for processing power, your bandwidth. And when you start doing things like
your electricity.
Yeah. When you start doing things like that, that's when it's like, hey, I'm getting phone calls and they're like, hey, all of a sudden our computers just aren't running very well anymore, and they're all slow. Our internet's slow. There's all these things, and a typical technician may look at that and go, well, you probably just need to replace your computer. Or, we just need to do a little cleanup routine on your system, a little maintenance routine, and everything will be fine. So it could be a much bigger problem than what people realize. They just think their system's slow. There's too much software on it, all these things. And what's really happening in the back end is somebody is running all this crypto mining stuff on there that's and it's considered malware.
Yes, because it's malicious.
It is. Sort of.
So, but I mean, there's a lot going on in the industry where that's concerned. And the problem is people don't realize if your systems are shut down, it does matter. That's part of availability.
It is. Yep. So,
Yes.
We may even see some guidance on that coming up in 2019, possibly, since it's going to be such a big issue. Ransomware is one of those things where you have it. Right. I mean, it's not a hidden fact. There's no, maybe, check my systems, I might have ransomware. You have it. Crypto mining, not so much. I mean, it could fly under the radar for quite a while. And some of the systems that we use in our security packages actually look for these types of things. It looks for, processes and things that are out of the ordinary to look at whether or not there's other issues. And so a typical software like an antivirus program, because everybody thinks that the antivirus, they have security. But, the antivirus program may not see that as being an issue, may not find it as being a problem at all. And so it takes something that's looking deeper into the system and how it runs and the resources that are being used to find that problem.
Yeah. And that alone is an important piece of just knowing that you have a problem. What they say, the first step to fixing it is knowing you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to make sure that you're working with your IT department or provider to say, what are you doing about crypto mining to make sure I'm not going to get it? Because
maybe your IT is using your computers to crypto mine.
Really, it's just another example of why you need to be vetting those IT vendors, even if they tell you, we got this, we work in healthcare all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to number 6. Number 6 is, I think there's going to be a huge rise in healthcare Internet of Things devices, IoT. So,
that's we keep talking about, I mean, we had an episode like in the first, few we did about IoT, rise of the machines. I mean, they're coming everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, super cool and awesome when they work, but there's also this wide open security problem. And when we look at healthcare, it's both on the provider side or the business associate side, those that are covered under HIPAA, but it's also the consumer facing stuff. All of the wearables and devices that people have, and then they come in and say, hey, I want you to, check this out for my medical record and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But there's so much investment in medical devices right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I got an article that talked about how, they called 60% of them maybe failures or something like that. 26% called them a success. And, but that's part of growth and, finding out what technology can do for us today.
Yeah.
So
there's so much it can do, technology, and I think we've kind of proven at this point it's not a fad. Technology is going to stick around a while. But at the same time, you have to address the security issues that come along with that. I mean, you walk into anybody's home, and even business these days, there are so many internet connected devices. A lot of times they don't even realize it. That things are connected to the internet. I mean, you got your appliances now are all connected to the internet. Washing machines, dryers, refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, everything's connected.
I'm sorry, I don't need to be at the grocery store and look at my refrigerator. I'm just not going to do it.
I already know there's nothing in there. I don't need to look at it. But, I just actually did a blog post yesterday about contacting IT with all the internet connectivity gifts that you got for Christmas, because what's going to happen for us is inevitably there will be a client that got some new device for Christmas and they're going to bring it into their office. And nobody's done any kind of vetting as to whether or not that should be in there or what kind of security issues it brings or how we're going to keep it updated. And it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I have an accounting firm that I work with, and last year the staff bought all of the partners' Google Home devices, and they wanted me to set it up where they could connect it to the office, and I went, no.
Yeah. Yep. So, there's lots of cool things out there. I always tell people, unless you absolutely have to have it at the office, leave them at home. Do not bring them into your office environment.
And yes, I know there's convenience. That's why they were made. But it's like any other case, the medical devices, all of the IoT things, all it does is increase your attack surface, period.
Yeah.
So whenever you put it in, you need to do a risk analysis to figure out how much of a problem that could create for you.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, I'm even scared that companies allow smartphones even in the building, because everybody is carrying their own smartphone around, or mobile computer. And
Right, computer that makes phone calls.
and it's inevitable that they have applications that are listening all the time. So you have, you got a dozen employees. That's a dozen microphones listening to everything going on around the office.
It's freaky.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
freaky.
So, yes, it's crazy to say leave your phones in the car. You can't have them in the office. But at the same time, there's, oh my gosh, it's just such a big issue. Which brings us to number 7.
It's perfect segue.
Yeah, the last one on the list. So organizations will finally, I think, begin to discover that security is a people issue and not a tech issue.
It's the people.
We've been saying that for a long time.
That's right. That's been it's the people, people.
Yeah. And we preach this over and over and over and over, but I think in 2019 it's going to get some traction, that people are going to finally understand, if I'm going to address security, it's not just I got to throw in some technology and then everything's going to be good. That you've got to invest in security awareness training, which, by the way, HIPAA says you got to do it. PCI says you got to do it. All these other regulations say you got to do it.
And that once a year, not happening.
No.
It is, you know how we feel about that. It's not going to work.
No. There's nothing you can train somebody on for 30 minutes one time a year and expect them to know how to do that for the remainder of the year and do it well. Not as something
and to take it seriously enough.
Right. I mean, we're not talking about, hey, let me show you how to clean a toilet one time and you got it.
And even then, that doesn't stick. You know what I'm saying?
So you have to do this over and over. You remember, you're trying to create a culture of compliance or a culture of security or a culture of privacy, whatever it is. You're trying to create a culture within your organization, and that takes constant reminders of what your mission is.
Well, and that constant reminders also shows how important you think it is to your organization. If you talk about it once a year, everybody knows it's not that important.
Yeah. When you said that, one thing that comes to mind is every time there's a breach, the letter that goes out is, we take security, of your information, to the so seriously. We take it so seriously. But then when you start digging into it, you find out, when's the last time you did any kind of security awareness training? We did that 2 years ago, or we did it once a year.
We send out an email.
Right. Don't tell me you take it seriously when one of the easiest things you can do is just provide user training or employee training, and you're not even doing that.
And phishing testing, and just a periodic, hey, look at this video, or
something.
Hey, read this article. Look what happened. This is why we don't want to do it.
Right. You're just trying to, check that thing off the list. Hey, we did our HIPAA training for the year. Or we did our security awareness training for the year. And it's pathetic.
Ooh, he's on his soapbox now. But, I did, for those of you who follow XKCD, it's a funny, nerdy cartoon, but I did, I'll include one on here because it was just so funny, because it's guys coming in and he says he's with IT to do some work, and the little note is, but he has a hat and a toolbox. Where could someone planning a heist get those? But the discussion is, now I'm paranoid because I've seen so much of this on TV, and clearly he doesn't listen to us, or he would be paranoid about what we tell him. But it's a funny note to say, look, there's somebody who's saying, oh, look, there's a visitor. Maybe I should vet them.
Yeah.
Is it me? Oh, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm just being paranoid because I saw a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have one client that they have several locations, and they have a lot of turnover of employees because of the business they're in. And last week we had to send a technician on site, and the technicians in there, the manager over the location knew they were there, but there was another secondary manager or whatever that walks into the office, and he goes, he looks at the technician sitting at the computer, and he goes, who are you? And I'm on the phone with the technician, so I hear this going on. And so my technician goes, oh, I'm from IT. And the guy goes, oh, okay. And turns around and walks off. And I'm like, I'm glad he challenged you. That was great. The problem was that after he challenged you, you just said, I'm from IT. And he goes, okay.
Yeah, if you can pull off with confidence you're with IT, it's done.
I know. So we're going to have to find a way for this organization to address the fact that, they have so much turnover that we can't really get to know who these people are and they know who we are. So we have to figure out a way to do that, and so that they don't just go, "Hey, we're IT." Okay.
You're going to have to get them badges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think we might just do tattoos
on the foreheads. Little barcodes.
There you go. Put them on the back of the neck like the hitman dude.
Yeah. Well, there it is. 7 items.
Yep, that is it. And that's what we think is going to happen in 2019. So we'll revisit this in December, and of course we'll be right on all 7 points.
And there'll likely be something that hasn't even occurred to us that'll be a big thing in 2019. The times where stuff happens and you're like, wow, I didn't even think of that.
I didn't see that coming. Yeah, that's always fun. So that's our show for today, folks. So thank you for listening. Please remember to share us out on your favorite social media site and rate us in our podcasting app. Keep spreading the word. We appreciate it. So remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.